How the hell do you have a Dracula movie without any Dracula? Welcome back to Howl-O-Ween, a Dracula-less Dracula movie. Believe it or not, it's a thing. We're going to take a look at two Dracula pictures that don't have any Dracula, despite being called Dracula in the title. They have vampires, but Drac himself isn't on the scene. This was done for a couple of reasons. Mostly so they could cash in on the name Dracula, because he's the one everybody thinks of when it comes to vampires. So if you're going to make a vampire movie, it only makes sense to market it as a Dracula movie, especially if you're making a sequel, which both of these movies are. First up, we have Dracula's Daughter from 1936. This is part of Universal's so-called horror cycle that started with Frankenstein in 1930 and the Bela Lugosi Dracula the following year. They wanted to make a sequel to Dracula, but they couldn't get Lugosi. He was holding out for more dough. Can't blame him, really. On top of that, Universal was having trouble getting the rights sorted out with Bram Stoker's widow. They eventually found a loophole, though, and came up with an original Dracula story. This one follows directly from the events in the original movie. At least we have Edward Van Sloan back as Van Helsing, or rather Von Helsing in this one. This one has at least a wax mannequin of Bela Lugosi that you can see for like 4 seconds, but he doesn't do anything and Lugosi himself isn't in it. Besides Van Sloan, none of the original cast returns, which is weird because Von Helsing is accused of murdering Renfield and Dracula, and none of the characters from the 1931 movie show up to defend him, and no one seems to remember the events from the first movie. Anyway, the movie starts with a couple of constables finding Von Helsing after he dispatches Dracula, and they arrest him. The bodies of Renfield and Drac are being kept in the local jail until a Scotland Yard man can come to take them away. Then Drac's spooky daughter and her henchmen show up and make off with Dracula. She burns the body, thinking that will free her from being a Dracula herself. Naturally, fate has something else in store for her, and as her servant points out, she's doomed to be a Dracula. She encounters a doctor she hopes can help her, and there's a hint of a romantic interest there, but ultimately she can't break free from the curse of Dracula-ry, which leads to a showdown in her castle in Transylvania. Frankenstein's James Whale was supposed to direct this, and it's a shame he didn't. Still, the movie is pretty good as a standalone vampire picture from the era. The lighting and photography are suitably spooky, and the Countess is a good horror character in her own right. She's also quite possibly the first appearance of the reluctant vampire, the kind we usually associate with Barnabas Collins from Dark Shadows. Here, unlike Dracula, the Countess doesn't want to be a vampire and wants to be free of the Dracula curse. Besides Van Sloan, in the cast is Otto Kruger as the doctor with a no-nonsense, commanding personality. the lovely Marguerite Churchill, who starred with John Wayne in The Big Trail, plays the doctor's assistant. They have a love-hate relationship going that's just marvelous and a lot of fun to watch. Actress and gossip columnist Hedda Hopper appears as Lady Hammond at a party. And we have the great character actor E.E. Clive as a police sergeant. The villainess of the piece, Countess Zaleska, is played by Gloria Holden. In later years, she thought the movie was awful. I guess she wanted to be remembered for other stuff. She played mostly supporting roles in her movie career, which sort of ended in the 1950s. She's really quite good here. Dracula's Daughter is not a bad picture at all, even though it's not a patch on the original Dracula. Next up, we have another Dracula-less Dracula movie. 1960s Brides of Dracula from Hammer Studios. They wanted to make a sequel to their first outing with The Count, Horror of Dracula from 1958, but they ran into a problem. Their Dracula, Christopher Lee, wasn't interested. He was afraid of being typecast, so he turned down the project. Fortunately, he came back for more Dracula-action later. But this led to a ton of rewrites and other problems, so they had to cook up an original Dracula story without Dracula. They still had Peter Cushing as Van Helsing, though, so there's that. Here, there's an old countess whose son is a vampire. A beautiful French chick is lured to her castle, and she stupidly frees the guy so he can go out vamping it up. Fortunately, Van Helsing is on the scene to deal with the vampirism. The vampire's mom has the vampire chained up so he can't go out and put the bite on anyone. It's really the silliest thing ever. I mean, look at this leg iron here. It's ridiculous. Like, how does this guy change his pants? Nobody thought of that, I guess. Except for me. It's just so silly. Anyway, the vampire is played by David Peel in one of his last roles. He gave up acting and became an art dealer. Apparently, he was better at that. Here, they have him in the blonde wig to let everyone know he wasn't actually Dracula, I guess. This one is typical Hammer horror fare, but Cushing is wonderful as always, so that makes it very watchable. You can watch another video about Dracula here. And down there, you can check out more Howl-O-Ween offerings. Join me next time as Howl-O-Ween continues.